What's up, you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, and we're back with another video. Today, for our photography from A to Z segment, we're going to be talking about the letter B, and B is for bokeh. Alright, so first off, guys, you have to understand that bokeh is a Japanese word derived from Japan, and I speak English. So I'm going to try my best to present this to you in the cleanest manner. Trust me, it's not going to be easy, but here I go. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of bokeh, we're going to first talk about what it is from its base ends, its fundamentals. Bokeh is a noun, which means it's an identifying word. I'm going to split it up into about 3 definitions so you'll get an understanding of what this word means, even though it's defined in a whole bunch of different ways. Okay, so bokeh is Japanese for blur. When you're talking about it in reference to photography, it gets a little bit hard to actually use it in a sentence because it's a Japanese word converted to English, so to speak, and it became popular that way. Bokeh refers to the blurring of the out of focus points of light in your image. Bokeh also means blur and dumb in Japanese, so you don't want to go around saying this in the wrong way to somebody. And the best way I've heard this articulated and defined was, bokeh is the way the out of focus points are rendered in an image. So you're starting to get the gist of it. It's talking about the blurriness, the shallow depth of field in your image, because bokeh is not just the blurry bits in the background, but bokeh can also refer to the blurry bits in the foreground that leads into your subject that's in focus in the background. Now, we live in a world where we have a lot of big camera sensors and a lot of wide aperture lenses, so you can see bokeh in various genres of photography, whether it be portraiture, whether it be wildlife, whether it be sports. You can see bokeh everywhere. It's not just for portraits. Now, when we really get into the nitty gritty of bokeh, we have awesome bokeh and we have bad bokeh. It's either one of the two, and there is some in between, but bokeh is essentially a feature of the lens. It's provided by the lens and the lens only. Now, even though technology plays a role in this, it's usually expensive lens gives you good bokeh and cheap lens usually gives you bad bokeh. But there are some third-party manufacturers like Sigma and Tamron who have been able to make cheaper lenses with higher quality optics, which gives you a lot better bokeh. All right, so then your next question might be, well, how do we identify whether it's good or bad bokeh? Isn't it just the blurry bits in your image? Well, not quite. You can have good or bad bokeh. Usually, good bokeh is nice and smooth and easy to look at. It really adds to the image. But bad bokeh can be really harsh and distracting. Usually the lines are jagged in the background that's blurry. Usually the circles are a little bit more jagged. They have a little bit more angle to them, and it's harder for your eye to look at. It actually becomes distracting to the image at some point. So you might want to watch out for what lens you use to get you this shallow depth of field. So if you look at the screen here, you can see one of the images with good bokeh, and then you can see an image with bad bokeh that I took. It's really simple. Like, you can tell that in one image it looks a little bit harsher, and in the other image it looks smooth and buttery. It's not always the most expensive lens that gives you the best quality. There's always caveats, but usually in this day and age, especially Sigma's doing a good job with this. Usually if you pay out of the nose for a lens $1,000 for a 50mm 1.2 or 1.8 or any shallow depth of field lens with a wide aperture, you're going to get good bokeh. I've been using Canon for almost 12 years now. Now, Canon has the amazing 70-200. The 70-200 2.8 and the 70-200 f4 both have awesome bokeh, awesome quality bokeh in the background. And you can't get past the fact that they're pretty expensive lenses. Now, the f4 is not that expensive in comparison, but the f2.8, any 70-200 you're going to get on Canon side is going to be super expensive because they don't lose value and they always hold their name. They are the bokeh beasts of the telephoto world. With anything in the camera world today, you have to research what you're getting. Nobody wants to have bad bokeh in the image. Nobody wants to have bad bokeh or rough bokeh or things that distract from your actual subjects, because what's the point of you being a photographer if you cannot isolate and have maximum control over your image? Because you're, at the end of the day, an artist or a journalist in the spectrum of photography. You either are one of the two or you're both at the same time. So you have to understand that your work needs to be unique and you want to have control over everything, which means you got to have a lens that is able to produce it. It's like we can't take the pictures ourselves as humans. We have to have a device that can do it. So we have to have a lens that will produce good bokeh. Bokeh doesn't just apply to the photography world, it applies to the video world as well. So for example, in this video right here, I'm using the Canon 50mm 1.4 on a Panasonic Lumix G7 in 4K, and all this stuff should be out of focus and stuff like that, and all this stuff should be out of focus, whatever, and stuff like that, and I should be relatively in focus. I did manually focus this because the G7 with the converter on it does not focus well, so don't get after me in the comments. I'm doing the best I can. I tried all day to try to focus this thing. Bokeh back there and relatively focused stuff right here in front of you. So you got bokeh back there, but in my opinion, the bokeh from the 50mm 1.4 isn't the best bokeh in the world. So you might see some harsh edges, just like in photography. But if I had like a practical or a light source behind me of some sort that actually was shining into the video, it would probably have its own shape too. So with video, when you have bad bokeh, you can really tell when lights come into the picture. When lights come into the picture as practicals or separate light sources off to the side in the background to add to the image, usually if you have a bad lens or bad bokeh, it'll come out more jagged and more distracting to the image. But if you have a good, like a Zeiss Otis or something like that, or Batis, a Zeiss Batis, or any kind of nice lens, or 70-200 from Canon, you'll see smooth edge circles coming from your light sources or practicals in the background. And with all this information, you might be saying to yourself, well, why do we even use this word in the English language? Why all of a sudden do we use the word bokeh in the English language? Well, back in 1997, a magazine editor by the name of Mike Johnson pretty much modified this word in his magazine articles about photography. And he basically said, hey, well, this is easier for English-speaking people to say the word like this, so I'm gonna make it like this. And essentially, it kind of made its own legs, and it became popular, and now we use it. The way it made its adventure over into the English language it makes so much sense to me, because if you understand that, okay, first of all, bokeh is, like I said before, a Japanese-derived word. It's native to Japan. So when it made its trip from Japan to the English language, we changed it up. We did whatever we wanted to do with it. And that's typically what happens, especially in the country that I live in. The country that I live in, we always change words and we mold them up to make them into it. We don't just do that with languages, we do that with food and other things, to make this an amalgam or a melting pot of different cultures. You can say at the end of the day, it's a shout out to Japan, because Japan makes 95% of our photography equipment. Have you ever looked at the bottom of your camera or the side of your lens or the bottom of your lens and saw where that lens was made in? Now, you might see another Eastern company or an Eastern land like Taiwan or China, but I think 92% of all photography equipment is made in Japan. I'm pretty sure Nikon is a Japan company or Japanese company, and Canon is a Japanese company, and I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones. When I first heard the word bokeh, I actually heard it on one of the most popular photography channels, Digital Rev, by a guy named Kai Wong. Now, Kai Wong, who has now separated from, he's now not working with Digital Rev, but has his own channel. I would advise everybody to go look at. He's an amazing content provider, amazing content creator. He does a lot of stuff photography and video wise, but if you haven't seen him already, go check him out. But he was the first person I heard use the word, and he popularized the word. If he didn't, a lot of other people amplified this word to what it is today. And of course, Mike Johnson, the original popularizer, has to have the credit as well. All right, so the biggest thing that threw me when I first started using the word bokeh is the suffix of the word bokeh. And you might be thinking, well, what do you mean? Well, bokeh means blur in Japanese, yes. But if you're using it to describe something, or it is something itself, it doesn't have other forms of the word. For example, if you have the word sharp in the English language, you have different variations of the word sharp. It has different suffixes, like sharpness, sharpest. Now, if you're using the word sharpest, that means you've reached a certain height of sharp in your image. But we don't have that with bokeh. We just have the word bokeh, which forces us to use it in a weird way in a sentence. So usually if we're talking about bokeh, we want to say, oh, that image has good bokeh or that image has bad bokeh. Well, in the real world, when you're using that word, you kind of feel childish when you're using it, because you want to be able to use it with a more advanced suffix like sharpness. The sharpness of this image is otherworldly. You want to be able to sound intelligent, because usually when you're using the word bokeh, you're criticizing or you're critiquing some kind of image. So you want to sound smart from the get-go. So it becomes very frustrating to use the word bokeh because it didn't come from the English language to begin with, and so to my knowledge, it doesn't have different variations of the word. Now, there's one company that I know that has trademarked a variation of that word, and that's CenturyFX. They have a trademark of a different variation of this word that people don't really use. Only Kai Wong used it in the series when he was there, but I don't want to use the word because look it up. It's not that hard to look up. It's a variation of the word bokeh, and it's the only one in reference to photography that I've ever heard in the English language that was patented or trademarked by CenturyFX. But at the end of the day, guys, when you want to produce bokeh, don't get hung up over good bokeh versus bad bokeh so much when you're getting started. It's usually, like they say, a lens snob thing to do. But when you become a professional and you really want maximum control over how your image looks, it's going to start bothering you like it bothers me. Like the 1.4, if I ever get enough money to get a 1.4 equivalent lens, then I will probably get the butteriest, creamiest lens that I can find that produces the butteriest bokeh. Another person who knows how to produce smooth, buttery images that has amazing bokeh is Manny Ortiz. He had a show called Beards and Gears, but I'm pretty sure he's under the handle of Manny Ortiz on YouTube. Go check him out. He's awesome. Oh yeah, one other thing. Going back to what I said about bokeh being produced, a lot of people nowadays with new iPhones like to produce bokeh artificially, and the iPhone will go back and produce bokeh and make everything blurry in the background as if it came from a professional photographer. Well, I think I speak for most professional photographers when I say that that kind of demeans our job. Like it dilutes the people's eyes. It dilutes the customers' eyes, because I don't think that they know the difference between bokeh that comes from the actual lens itself and software that just smoothed everything out. You know, I think the customer's eyes will be attracted to the professional image. So I think we should appreciate professional photographers' bokeh more than we appreciate the iPhone 10 bokeh. But I'm not gonna harp on that. That's a subject for another time. But I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. I'm going to have more videos on bokeh, how to produce bokeh, what good bokeh looks like in reference to bad bokeh. I'm going to do all of that stuff, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode. But that's it for this one. Keep shooting those cameras.